How you doing, everybody? Hi, Dominic. Hey, Dominic. You know that book? Um, or what is it? Disturbed Time, I think. I can't remember the name. I've been reading it, but I wrote a note to the author, Aaron Stark, and heard back from him. Really a super nice guy. Hey, Rancher Brian, good to see you. Thank you, Brian. I need to know that. Hi, Eco. Oh boy, what is it? I I tell you, I was working yesterday on a trellis, and it put together with terrible instruction. It's like the IKEA furniture. I don't know if you've ever put together IKEA furniture, but it comes with instructions that you always you don't want to sit down in an IKEA chair until you tried it with somebody else. But putting this trellis together and this whole menagerie we my wife got, my God. Oh, hey Abdul, good to see you. Hi Dominic. Anyway, well listen, I thought it would be interesting today to talk about these luxury brands and what are they doing in, I mean, are they really high horology or are they something else? I've got on my Fabergé Alexi with its who is it, Frederick Piguet movement in it, and I was looking around for, just looking around. Hi, Michael. Um, Imagine if watches came like IKEA stuff. That'd be wild, John. Let me show you guys something real quick here. Hold on, let me see. I guess not. Oh, there it is. Open with preview. I want to show you something real quick here. Now that I've learned my a new trick, I was looking at I was looking at these movements by Chanel, and I knew about the Caliber One movement that they made for the Monsieur, and I was very familiar with the Kinesi movements that were based on the Tudor. Okay, so but then I got this at the Europa magazine that has everything about everything in French, in Swiss and French and everything else watchmaking, and I came across all of these new movements in what Chanel calls its high horology. They use horology, but there's and and I was looking at these movements that they had, and I was thinking, my God, these things are really amazing because I know that Caliber One was made in part with the help of Romain Gauthier, and I also know that Chanel owns a hunk of Romain Gauthier. They own 20% of FP Journe. And so I'm thinking, this is going to some interesting places. Fabergé had some two really incredible watches. One's called the Visionaire Chronograph, and the other one's called the Visionaire DTZ for dual time zone. Both of them have movements by Agenor. And so it just sort of struck me as something. This might be an interesting topic to talk about. What are they doing? Which companies are involved, and how are they involved making, rather than putting in Solita and ETAs and making them fancy. What's going on? So anyway, I know that Abdul wants to know about that. uh, okay. Hey, Goldfinger. Good morning, Andrew. Good to see you. Okay. The I I really like to hear your opinions on this. Is that they're very serious about that. I know that our designer was, when I say our designer, the one Larique's designer, Mathieu Allegre. Chanel tried to hire him. They wanted him to move to Paris and be like head up some watch design division. Really, I mean, this is, some brands like Hermes, who own a big hunk of Vaucher, 25% of it, and VMH, what is it? LVMH, Louis Vuitton, and then they have Le Temps, the Fabrique de Temps. So we got all of these, and these guys have serious money. I think a lot of the problems that we see with all of the watchmakers, except Rolex maybe, is financially staying afloat. And another thing I ran across the other day, they were talking about having sold 1 billion Apple watches. I'm thinking, oh my God, they were worried about the quartz crisis. Okay, so let's see what you guys have to say. Abdul? I think you're right, Brian. I think you're absolutely right. He'd just be a number with if he went to Paris. I think his main squeeze would love to go there with him. The Apple Watch saved the watch industry. That's quite possible. John, hey, let's see. Recently saw Gucci with a beautiful minute repeater. Who makes them? What model? Gucci. I think they're part of LVMH, aren't they? Which would probably mean Le Temps Fabrique would be my guess on that one, Dominic. I mean, John. He's the only designer with that. It is good for interested buyers to have a broader variety of designs. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly, I've been, when I've seen what Swatch has done, they, and I'm thinking, wow, maybe the sort of traditional watchmaking will be saved by these luxury brands. All right. Um, Sort of the Silicon boys have theirs, of course. The biggest threat was not the e-watch; it was the 20th century pocket watch, aka a cell phone. Ah, interesting. And especially the cell phone that Apple came out with, the iPhone, which was then, I guess there's some other versions too, all of the Android driven ones. Hi, Dino. High horology is more about movement, design, uniqueness, refinement. Yeah, it is. I think, you know, um, I don't think, yeah. Yeah, he runs the whole Laric's entire design department is run by Matthew. I I've come to see high horology more and more as sort of a marketing thing that again was pulling um watch them out of inexpensive but very good watches like Seiko has. Um, but then it got to the point where it seemed that the emphasis was on having an in-house movement no matter what, and then a lot of gold. Well, gold or platinum or something like that, and those prices have gotten to the point where they add $10,000 to a watch for about, maybe $1,000 worth of gold or platinum. So it's sort of I don't know where high horology is, but in referring to high horology, I really think we can talk about really good movements. Maybe some of the things I think that they include in that is finishing, and there are a lot of things that are there. But when we look at the foundation of high horology, who started that? Who's behind that? Well, it's Richemont. So that's why I'm a little dubious about using high horology outside of sort of a really referring to development of movements, and not some schlock movement that somebody threw together, but rather some really interesting stuff. And when you look at that stuff that Chanel has, my God, that looks like the entire movement parts are from Romain Gauthier's factory, because he makes his own parts, and they own part of Romain Gauthier. So there's a lot of interesting things going on with that. Exceptional horology, the top 10%. Yeah, I agree with that. Hey, Michael, you got here. Great. I was chatting with Michael a few minutes ago, and he's in Switzerland. Here he was with Andrea Streller and Beat Hollerman and Philippe Dufour. Wow, what a trip! I hope he gets by Agenor too if you get to Geneva. Oh, Rancher. Some of the newer models show off the movement from the dial side, like some of the six. Oh yeah. Now the other thing is about that. All of the watches, or most of the movements, were for women's watches. If you look at the sort of the main affordables too, by the way, Chanel watch for men, you have the Monsieur, that's it. Except you do have a J12, and there's one of the all black J12 with a Canisi 12.1 or 12.2 movement. Well, they call it I think they call it something. A J 12.1 or 12.2. They have both of them now, which is pretty good looking movement, but those are essentially Tudor movements. But when they start, oh yeah, too, by the way, they have this factory, a movement factory in La Chaux de Fonds. And that place is not connected with Tudor or Rolex or anybody else. they're they're off making things, and the only connection that they have is with as a watchmaker is Romain Gauthier. Interesting stuff. Yeah, Michael, you're right. I go by Agenhor too. You'll see some more there, Michael. And by the way, too, they really like Michael's. Michael had one of the 5 pink Etude 2s, and they like the pink one. I'm glad to hear that. Hey, HRM, buddy of mine recently purchased a Chopard watch. Has movement bridges that are covered in leather. Very strange to see. That is strange. Okay. Well, what do you guys think? Let's go back, sort of rewind it a bit. What do you think about these luxury brands like Chanel, like Hermes, like Louis Vuitton? Who else is involved? You know, it's funny. Van Cleef and Arpels has been for quite a while. And one of the things that happened to them is sort of interesting. They were winning all of these GPHG awards using Agenor's movements. And then in the last one, they had a pretty nice movement, but it was by Val Fleurier. And Val Fleurier, as you remember, was the movement, sort of the movement factory for all of the brands under the Richemont sort of umbrella. Baume et Mercier had something called the Baumatic, which they were saying, oh, we got an in-house movement finally. Well, in-house if you consider Val Fleurier in-house. So that's sort of an interesting thing. And then you've got Swatch with their silicone hairsprings, and I don't know. So I'm sort of, and then when I saw some stuff that was done by Chanel, wait a minute, these guys are doing the interesting stuff. And you look at a lot of the Hermes, some of the Hermes things. Now it was the Hermes watches that won awards and had some module done by Agenor. So you've got like, maybe you hear these other guys are cutting corners, and then you see these luxury brands going into, and I'll call it high horology for exceptional horology that's going on. Dominic, since women have a shorter interest, oh, don't say that. Be careful, Dominic. Look out for the rolling pin. It could be a test. A shorter interest span. I think what you meant, they aren't as interested in watches as guys. Oh, man. Oh, good. Oh, you gotta go the next trip to see Agenor. Similar to move over to men's watches. Yeah, I think in looking at the Caliber 6, when I was looking at the Caliber 6, which goes into a J12, and they have this automata with this weird thing with Coco Chanel. That's going to be in the GPHG under women's exceptional watches, believe me, and it'll make the short list. Okay. But man, they've been working on movements like mad. Dino, hi. I think these luxury brands are doing great work by adding jewelry, artistry, case refinement, along by movement refinement and design, sometimes at a great price, like Hermes. Now that's another good point. Hermes has got you got this. One of the things that Hermes does, Hermes has these special fonts made for their watches. That that's nice. They have their unique fonts that for Hermes, and so you can spot an Hermes watch a block away because they've got when you look at the dial, they have these distinct features to them. And in terms of what Dino just said, the design elements on my Fabergé, they've got this deep hand done guilloche with a rose engine, and and some really nice blued hands as well. And then they put it into a white gold case. The only thing they did that was really funny, on the back, there's a solid back. Took the back off, and here's this imperial eagle that's used as a rotor. I think, my God, here you've got this crazy rotor that the imperial eagle, and you hide it underneath this solid. That's funny. Okay, let's see what else you guys have. Andrew, what's up? I always try to judge the watch objectively. Andrew, you're a better man than I. I can't look. I get excited. If I ever played poker and I had a good hand, I'd be like a dog. I'd be wagging my tail. But I'm glad to hear some of you have that. Always try to judge it objectively, which means there are watches by fashion houses, for example, I think are superb, but others that are same brand. Yeah, I agree, Andrew. That's a good point. Yeah, you gotta even a dog has some sense. Michael, I report back in Chanel once I get my Monsieur One back from service this week. That's great. I think, in looking at it, I think you and I both ended up with a new version of the Caliber One. I really do, because they did some stuff to that. Conversely, there are a large number of big watch brands releases that are objectively terrible. Good point. Got to run a neat. What do they say? How do you say that? Bon appetit. Dino, let's see. Also, in-house can be too overemphasized. A high-grade ETA Solida La Joux-Perret calibrated can be much better than an in-house movement. Yeah, I tell you something though. You take a watch with a movement by a top watchmaker. Forget La Joux-Perret and ETA and Solida. Just set them aside. Where you have these top winning watches, they'll have, and when you stop and think about it, the Hermes watches are from, well, sure, the award-winning watches from Fabergé, from Van Cleef and Arpels, and actually and Hermes, often are made by Agenor. So here you have a watch that it's going to be very hard to match the movement quality that you'd get from someone like Agenor, as opposed to trying to get your own movement manufacturing done. By the way, too, another thing in the book that Dominic sent me, the idea of a in-house movement is sort of a strange one in this respect. Traditionally, you have these guys that make movements, and then you have guys that make cases, and you have guys that do this and do that. And even with the industrialization that came along into the Jura Valley, they felt that the culture, the Swiss culture, this was important to it. And so having a watch that was not made in-house was more the way to do it, because then you'd get a good movement, as opposed to having somebody trying, well, let's see if we can do it ourselves. Not to say that some companies like Rolex, like Vacheron Constantin, Patek Philippe before 2009, and some other ones have some really great in-house movements. Russia, it's the Russian eagle, the one that looks like a chicken that didn't make it across the road. Hey, John, with the new fad of tourbillons, repairing them in high end is prohibitive. Hublot's skeletonized movement with tourbillon cost was crazy, of course. John, I've got to tell you, I think I had it on this video on high. Wait, what is it? Watch Art Psi was this $105 that I paid for a tourbillon and made a little watch out of it. Tourbillon, is to me is it's almost like those things, like putting a beanie on a hat. I got a little beanie up. I got a little propeller up here. I mean, not a beanie on a hat, but a propeller on a beanie. You got that. I mean, it's like it doesn't do any good, because it was really designed for watches that were at this position. Wristwatches are at all different kinds of positions, and so they're not quite the necessity, nor do they work. But you're right that it became a thing. Well, we know how to do tourbillons, we must be great. Well, after I picked one up for $100 from China, I'm thinking, yeah, they're sort of cool, but apparently they're not that difficult to make. And those aren't as good as the ones we have. Prove it. Okay, enough out of me. Let's see. What do you got here? Hey, Andre Jensen. I like it when a jewelry company makes the best they're capable of. It's okay movement. Yeah, like movements like JLC. But see, JLC was like Agenor. They only made movements. That was their job. And they have good ones. As opposed to the thing about Sellita and ETA aren't that bad. They're mass produced. And so because they're mass produced, they're a lot cheaper. You're paying like, and then they have the standard level, the elaborate, the top, and then the COSC level. So you can have different, grades of a movement. And it was just mentioned earlier that some of the ETA are quite good. And I mean, and same with Sellita. La Joux-Perret, I don't know about them. I think the money they have behind them is from Citizen Watches. I think Citizen owns La Joux-Perret. See you, Brian. Abdul, I think a lot integrated industrial companies are making movements even better than in-house ones in the same price segment. Probably are. Hi, Eddie. How you doing? Yeah. Hajime Ahsoka Tsunami. That watch is a beautiful watch. Incredible. I love it. Yeah, no, that HRM, that is definitely a great watch. Yeah, Michael, I agree with Michael. Okay, it looks like the time for me to shut up and go away, according to the rancher. Anyway, guys, as I thought it might be an interesting discussion, because when I saw all of those movements by oh wow, That's a great price for that tsunami. Anyway, when I saw all of those movements by, I like to see all of the different movements that are made by luxury brands. Manufacturer La Joux-Perregaux is indeed owned by a citizen group. Yeah, they started off life when Jean-Pierre Jacquet had to go to prison because essentially that was his maison. And when he had to go to prison, they renamed it so nobody would know. Anyway, guys, gotta run. Take care. And be back at 4 o'clock. We'll think of Rancher will help me think of something to talk about then. Take care.